No one told me, including my mama, that labors could be that quick with your first child. Hey you guys, it's Sister CK back doing another video, and today's video is all about birth stories. So I've had 3 children. My oldest is 8, the second one is 4, and the third one is 1. So I have 2 boys that are the oldest 2, and then a little girl who is the youngest. Each birth was similar but different, of course. Each pregnancy was similar but different. So I wanted to do a video about each of my births and to encourage you guys to talk about your birth story. So my first birth with my son, who's 8, got pregnant. Everything was pretty perfect with the pregnancy. The birth started on a Friday evening. I was just sitting down on the couch and I felt a pop. And from the first contraction to him being born, it was about an hour and a half. And our condo was about 30 minutes from the hospital. Now me thinking, you know, this is my first birth, first labor, all that, it's gonna take forever, all the stereotypical things you think as a new mom. And I was like, all right, we'll just get going because it's starting, and the pain came pretty quickly. And so by the time I got in my husband's truck, I was just full out. It was just too much. I mean, I was like keeled over. I couldn't, you know how it is with, if you've had a baby and you've been in labor and you have those contractions, it's just like, it's overwhelming. You don't, you know, as a pregnant mom, you've never had a baby before, you have no idea what labor is like and what contractions are, what it means and the sounds mean and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just holding on, literally, for dear life. And as we are coming around the bend to the hospital, because that's where I had chosen to give birth. I mean, I kind of followed the standard way of things, other than wanting to have do an all-natural birth, no medications, no interventions, stuff like that, unless it was medically necessary. I just went with the standard protocol. So I went to the hospital, and as we were pulling up to the hospital, I started making these sounds like, you know, like a grunting primal sound. I had no clue I was pushing, but that's what it was. So by the time we got into the hospital, you know, they want to ask you all these questions, and I'm literally pushing my son out. I didn't know it at the time, but by the time we got to the triage room, they looked and they said, oh no, we need to take her right to delivery. So I went across the hall, and within like maybe 5-10 minutes he was born. No one told me, including my mama, that labors could be that quick with your first child. Like, I had no clue that it would feel, you know, like an out-of-body experience. Like, when I look back, I don't even remember the pain. I literally remember myself hovering over my body, looking down while we were in the delivery room at myself birthing this child. Like, I just totally detached. Like, it was so, like, crazy. Like, I had no sense of who I was, where I was. I knew what was happening, but I literally floated out of my body. So he was totally fine. I mean, they had to give him some oxygen and, you know, perk him up because it was such a fast delivery. But I mean, that was just nuts. And I really didn't, like, as I started to tell the story, like after he was born, I was back to work, I got all these responses. It's like, I mean, they weren't negative because everybody has their own, you know, birth story, but mine was very abnormal. Like, I didn't have time for the doctor to get there. I didn't have time for an epidural, even if I wanted one. I didn't have time for all that. I literally got there as he was coming out, and they caught him. And so, like, when I felt like I didn't need to tell my story a lot of the time because it was easy. And you don't think of birth as easy. And so that's, you know, another reason I wanted to talk about birth stories, because every woman does not have 36, you know, hours of birth and excruciating pain and all these negative connotations that they want to act like everyone experiences. Now, I don't even think it's negative to have those that experience. It's just your experience. It's just how your child or children are born. It's nothing wrong with that. It's actually part of your plan. So, when I say negative, I'm talking about the emotions we attach to it, not the experience itself, because it just is. If your child is here and you made it here, that's the purpose of it. That's the way it went. And mine was very, very opposite. So, fast forward to almost 4 years later, I was pregnant with my second son. His delivery went differently. I still had a fast labor as far as I'm concerned, but the time doubled. And the reason I think he took 3 hours was because of the stress that I endured at the hospital. Doctors and nurses are not used to fast deliveries. That's just the only conclusion I can come to, because no one knew what to do. So anyway, I get there, we get there, luckily my husband has been there all 3 times, because he knows, how my labors go, that I really don't take a long time. I'm not someone who needs a lot of physical support in labor. I kind of just need somebody to be there to catch the baby. That's honestly how it goes. So he was there, and we got to the hospital with our second son, and we got to triage, and I got stuck in triage. So when I get there, they check me, and I'm about 4 centimeters. And I had never been checked and dilate. Anytime I went to the doctor, I was 0. I don't dilate until it's go time, basically. So, by the time I got there, it was I was 4. And that had been probably about maybe 30 minutes, but I couldn't tell them that because I'm just trying to hold on. But I remember I went to the bathroom, because when I heard 4, I was like, okay, I need to really rethink this natural thing, because if I have 6 more centimeters to go, I'm not gonna make it. This is horrible. Because at this point I had I knew what it was about, I knew what labor felt like, and I knew that it was gonna hurt, and I knew the level of pain. So I was like, I'm not gonna be able to make it. So anyway, I go to the bathroom, and I use the bathroom, and I'm holding on to the sides, the bars they have in the hospital bathroom. And it was just the biggest contraction ever. It was I was in there by myself, and I couldn't even say anything. I couldn't yell. I just had to literally hold on again for dear life. So when I got out of there, I told my husband, I said, I need an epidural, I need something, because I am not gonna make it. I did the whole bit that you normally think. I wasn't yelling or anything like that or violent, but I definitely knew that if I was gonna do this thing, I had to have help. The hospital I deliver my children in has a birth center attached to it. So we're really, really lucky that we get the comfort and the home sense of a birth center, but it's still at the hospital. So if something is wrong, we have that level of care available to us. So someone from the birth center came, and I don't know who she was. My eyes were closed, but she said, do you hear her? She is ready to push. You need to take her. Stop worrying about, how many centimeters and all these things. You need to take her to delivery, because she is going to have this baby. I'm telling you, I'm so thankful to her. I don't know who she was, but she knew. And immediately they listened to her, and off I went. So I get to the birth room. I'm 10. I'm ready to go. And he was delivered probably 5 minutes later. That birth, while it was still a natural birth, it just left a bad taste in my mouth. Because again, my doctor didn't make it, and there's no fault of the doctor, but one thing I will say, when I was in triage, the doctor that wasn't the typical doctor I saw, my OBGYN, she was her partner. She must not be used to fast labors either, because she kind of was maybe the one that kept me in triage, because she said, just keep her there, I'm on my way. And I don't think she understood the gravity of the situation. So again, my doctor didn't make it. And after the fact, I just knew that if I ever had any more kids, I would definitely either want to have them at home, or I would want to have a doula. I love my husband, and he is a great support to me, but if you've ever had a doula, you just kind of need that additional support. It's a support for him, so he doesn't feel like he's in it by himself. And then it's it's a support for me, whatever I needed. So a doula is everything. At some point in my life, I definitely want to be a doula. I'm not sure what kind of doula yet, but I love the idea of being an advocate for women, and that's exactly what I got on my third birth. So my third birth was in 2015, so last year, and again, my pregnancy was very standard, didn't have too many issues. I mean, there was a potential problem that had us going and having ultrasounds a little bit more frequently, but it turned out not to be a big deal in the end. So I get to the birth. It's time to have another baby. It's so crazy. Like each birth, I know what's coming, so it's like I think that's where the fear comes from. Because you know it's gonna hurt, and who wants to be in pain? And like you have no control, and you just have to just release, and you're so vulnerable, and it's the most vulnerable place you can be in as a woman. You're literally at the mercy of your body and time, and all these things that you have no control over. So knowing all that, going to the third birth, I knew I wanted to do it the same way. I wanted to be natural. I figured it would be the same thing where it's really quick. And it was an hour and a half. So I had an hour birth, 3-hour birth, and then back to an hour and a half. So my contractions, my water broke with my daughter. I was laying in the bed with my youngest son, and I just felt that pop. I was like, oh, here we go. So I called my doula, and I called my doctor, and they were on the way to the hospital. Contractions started immediately, and they hit hard. I don't know what the frequency was. I never got a chance to track that, but they started and they were hitting hard, and they were coming more frequently. And I had to get, at that point I had 2 kids, so I had to make sure that my kids were taken care of, because it wasn't the middle of the night, but they had gone to sleep already. And of course, I'm not going to take them to the hospital, so I had to get the grandparents to come. And in the meantime, I had to call my nephew, because he lives down the street, and his eyes were so wide. I felt so bad for him, but I had to reassure him. I said, I'm fine. I just need you to stay here until your grandma gets here, and she'll know what to do. And he's like, okay. So that was pretty funny. But contractions were coming, and I'm in the car, and I called my doula back, and I said, I'm going. And she was like, I'll meet you there. And she made it. I want to say we got there at the same time, or at least I think she had come and met me at the room. So she was there from the start of me getting there through the time I had my daughter. Now, what I remember from this birth was that my doula was there, my husband was there. I just my body goes into this mode of out. Like, I don't do anything. I'm not somebody who really can control what happens during my birth. Like, even with pushing, I can't. I zone out. It's too much going on. And I just don't listen to anybody. I feel bad, after the fact, but I'm like, you got to do what you got to do when you're in labor. So, I'm on the bed. I didn't do anything I planned. They at the birth center, they have a whirlpool, and they have the shower. They have all these things that I could use. But I'm like, I literally just got, and it probably wasn't good, but it just was what it was. I'm just in the bed, like flat on my back, like tensing up, doing everything you're not supposed to do. But my daughter, she came anyway. I did have to push more with her. I didn't say my second son, I did have to push a little bit. My first son, he literally just came. I really didn't push. My second son, I did have to push a little bit, but not much. My daughter, I definitely had to focus and try to push. And that was probably 15 minutes. I don't know. It wasn't long. I can't remember how long it was, but it wasn't long. But I definitely remember having to focus and listen to the midwives, because it's midwives that run that. So listen to my doula, and she was asking me questions, and I'm just like, I can't. I just got to get this baby out. So then she was born, and it was just love. You know how it is. You have your baby, and you're like, oh my God, I did that. This is wonderful. And it was about an hour and a half. So with all 3 births, I would say each birth I healed quicker. The first birth, I keep forgetting details. Sorry, guys. The first birth, I did tear. I had to get stitches. And I mean, I could expect that because the birth happened so quickly. I hadn't had a baby before. It was a pretty significant tear, but I healed fine and everything was good. The second time I had a little bit of tear. I don't believe I had any stitches, but if I did, it was very minimal. The third baby, I had nothing. I literally felt back to normal the next day. Like I could get up and walk around and nothing. It wasn't even like I had a baby. I mean, it was amazing. My daughter was the one that I stayed in the bed longer with. I actually, took basically a month of not going anywhere, just laying around with her, just healing. Even though I felt good, I knew I just needed to chill. So that's what I did with her. But each birth was just life-changing. And not just because you have a new baby, but because I knew where my power was. The process, it can be painful, but it's a good pain. It's for a reason. So many people have pain for no reason, but this pain is a good reason. It's this uncomfortability, this all these different emotions, and you get protective and all the mama stuff. It just comes through you and it comes naturally. And I owned it, and I own all 3 births. It doesn't matter that they were short and one was painless and one was very painful. I own all of it. They're wonderful experiences, and I'm not afraid to share them, obviously, anymore, because I don't have to have a traumatic birth to have my voice heard, to have my births mean something. And I encourage, like I said in the beginning, I encourage you to tell your story or stories because they're all important. I mean, as you move away from them, you'll forget the little details, but the feelings that come from them, not just the love for your baby, but just the power, regardless of how they were born, whether they came out of your vagina or your stomach, it does not matter. They're here, and you did that. So own that and understand the power of that. Only women can have babies. Like if this world didn't have women, that would be it. So you have to own that power and take those feelings, even if you feel guilty for something or you wish things. I mean, I had a birth plan too. It literally went out the window. Like you survive it, and you should thrive from it. Just own your births, tell your story, encourage others to do that. Don't be so quick to say, oh, because my mother had this type of birth, this is what I'm gonna have. That's not true. Each birth that you have is yours. I really enjoy talking about this topic. So I hope to hear what your birth stories are like. Maybe if you have videos, link them in the comments. I would love to watch them. But as mamas, we really need to share this. It's really cathartic, and others need to hear it so they know that they're not alone, whether it is a traumatic birth or if it's, just a fast delivery like mine. So those are my birth stories. I hope to hear yours, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.